because I remember a moment in my teaching career when I asked myself a similar question.
I was in a meeting and I shared an idea that I really believed in. And the teachers and administrators in the room, they nodded politely and moved on. Moments later, a colleague shared the same idea, and suddenly the room lit up with excitement. And I sat there thinking, did they not hear me? And just as I was about to speak up, the looks on their faces, the unspoken rules of the room, and even the voices in my own mind told me to stay calm. But that wasn't really calm. That was silence. That was emotional suppression disguised as professionalism. And in that moment, I realized that silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the echo of being unseen. And unfortunately, too many women in education live in that echo. They're told to be strong, but not too strong. They're told to speak up, but not too much. And somewhere between grace and grit, they lose their voice trying to please everyone in the room. And that silence, it doesn't just stay with us, it spreads to the students that we teach. Research shows that teachers interrupt girls more, call on them less, and give boys more wait time and more challenging questions. Girls are praised for being quiet and nice, while boys are told to toughen up and use their voice. But both lose the opportunity to be vulnerable and to express themselves freely. Now, the problem is implicit bias. And while we're working to change those systems, we must ask ourselves as women, how do we navigate a space that wasn't built to hear us? And many people believe that the solution for women is just be more confident. But what if the real issue wasn't confidence, but self-regulation? What if the missing piece wasn't us finding our voice, but navigating the voices that silence it? That's what self-regulation is. It's the ability to manage our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors so we respond and not just react. And the mastery of this begins with calm.
CALM. Our first anchor, our C, is the culture of belief. Now, belief isn't just wishful thinking or blind optimism, it is a conviction. It's a conviction that everyone has worth, a voice, and the capacity to grow. But in order to build the culture of belief, we must first confront the barriers in our own minds. Thoughts like, my voice doesn't really matter. Or, I just need one more degree before I'm credible. Or, there's only room for one woman at this table. Or even worse, there's only room for one kind of woman here, one that looks like us, talks like us, and thinks like us. But when we reject those narratives, we not only reclaim our voice, but we give others the permission to use theirs. But belief alone, it isn't enough. It must be supported by our next anchor, which is A, aligned structures and routines. Now, in education, we have a procedure for everything, for how students line up to how they submit assignments. And even us as educators, we have procedures on how we submit lesson plans and behavior logs and how we conduct evaluations. But what's the procedure for when we're interrupted in a meeting? Or when we want to advocate for ourselves without being labeled as too emotional or too difficult? Aligned structures and routines means creating procedures, scripts, and routines for when we're dismissed and when we try to express ourselves. Now, many people believe that self-regulation just happens in the moment, but really it's built on our next anchor, which is L, layered practice throughout the day. It's that pause that you take so you don't send that reckless email. And it's the breath that you take before you speak out in the meeting. And it's even the practice of listening instead of defending when you hear feedback. These practices quietly build emotional strength. And neuroscience calls it habit formation. That's when our actions like pause and naming our emotions and reframing our thoughts, even in those small moments, becomes automatic when the big moments arrive. Now, skills like self-regulation, they don't just develop by chance. They grow through our last anchor, which is M, modeling and explicit instruction. Research shows that when skills like self-regulation are taught explicitly, they strengthen empathy, focus, and academic performance. And just like we teach reading and math, we can teach other women and our students not only what to do, but how to do it and what to look for. We can give them the language they need so they can describe their emotions and give them the tools necessary so they can regulate themselves and express themselves without shame. Every voice carries the weight of a story that hasn't been heard yet. And for far too long, women's stories and education have been edited for comfort. But what if we stopped shrinking our truths to fit the system and started using our stories and our ideas to transform it? What if calm wasn't the opposite of chaos, but the strategy that leads us through it? Because calm isn't silence, it's anchored confidence. So the next time you hear a woman in a classroom, a boardroom, or even in a courtroom ask, "Can you hear me?" Don't just listen to her. Answer her. Because when you do, you not only change what's possible, you change what's normal. Thank you.